Casino dealers of Reddit, what is the saddest thing you've seen at your table? Toss up between 1. Coming into work to see some of the same people still playing that were there when I left the previous night. 2. Watching other dealers take their tokes and sit down at a table and lose it all after their shift ended. Number 2 is just the height of human irrationality. They were literally just finished watching other people lose 4 hours. And then go do the same expecting different results. Been in the casino industry for about 14 years. Dealt for about 8 of those. I have since moved up and am in management now. The saddest thing I've seen is death. Death by itself is tragic and rare. And seeing someone keel over from a heart attack is sad to say the least. But you are trained and ordered to never stop dealing if there are bets that need to be paid or taken. Case in point, a normal, slightly overweight guy has a heart attack. He drops. It happened across from me in a different pit. But I saw it just the same. Concerned crowd. EMTs arrive. All of what you would expect. But he had this misfortune of dying on a live craps table. In the middle of a good roll. People complained that the game stopped. So they kept the game going as EMTs were doing their thing. People were straight stepping over the guy's legs to place bets. In Street Louis, if you are curious. I've seen 2 other people die in my casinos. But this one was the saddest by far. LPT, you gotta have heart attacks with bad hands too to balance out your heart attack range. I worked as a croupier for 3 years. I had an Irish student come into the casino drunk. He proceeded to spend his entire year's worth of student loans and bursary. He stood at my blackjack table and begged me and my manager for his money back. Trying to explain to me that he was only 18 and why it was illegal for us to put him in such a position, for example. Bent over the table and looted of all monies. Can't afford it? Don't spend it. Oh my goodness. That guy possibly ruined his life in one fell swoop. That is very sad. I worked front of house, reception, for a few casinos and I've seen very well off people come on and after a few months they are broken homeless. I've also seen people coming in for the first time and leaving in tears. It's really sad, but at the end of the day it's greed. One story in particular will always stick with me. I worked in a casino near Chinatown in London and we had a new member sign up. He had recently inherited a huge fortune from a relative. It was his first time in the casino. I saw him more and more regularly as the months went by. I think it was about 6 months after his first visit I saw him literally begging for money in Chinatown. Greed. It gets everyone. I wasn't a dealer, but I used to work security at a casino. I remember a relatively wealthy couple explaining to me that they sold their fridge and stove so that they could use the money to keep gambling. They said they had no need for them because the casino can't them so many meals. All I could think of was how sad of people they were. This one for some reason bothers me more than anything though, seeing a mother leave her children at the entry gate so she could gamble. This was like 2:30 AM and the children were something like 4 and 16. We told her numerous times to take them home but she wouldn't. We contacted DCI, state troopers basically that are always on property, to come and talk to her. Because the 16-year-old was watching the other child they couldn't do anything. We also had a policy that if they were at the table games, the pit boss had to make the call to kick her out. He wouldn't because she was spending too much. I just watched as these kids sat on a bench for hours waiting for their mom. They complained they were hungry and thirsty but I couldn't do much more than get a waitress to grab a soda. Was a dealer for 3.5 years. Baccarat, poker and roulette, Australia. We had a section in our Baccarat lounge that was set at $5 $10 $25. 8 deck shufflers. Pretty much considered the pit of hell due to the fact you got all the old Cantonese players who couldn't speak a lick of English. Would try to duck you constantly by moving bets during payouts. And complaining like crazy whenever you broke their streak as if you manually handled the entire 8 deck just to get a break. Anyway. One day shift while I was working in this section. Sheets going like clockwork. Rotation of 4 tables, 2x $10. 1x $5 and 1x $25. Supervisor noticed an old Chinese man had been sitting at the $5 table for most of the day. Maybe betting once every 30-40 minutes. Kind of standard for the area. So didn't really pay attention to it. 6 hours in and night shift supervisor takes over. Gets the 411 from the previous sup and gets into it. Old man still chillin' like a villain. No cares in the world. 1 hour later however. Wow. You've heard of the swamps of Dagobah from that doctor story here on Reddit. Same deal. Turns out the old man didn't want to get up while playing. This is actually more common than you think, and thought it was just fine to drop his guts into the chair and pretend nothing had happened. He had to be escorted out and sent to the hospital because the remnants he left didn't look healthy. Tables closed for maintenance, but that smell ducked with everyone in the pit for hours. We have a duty of care for the customers. But some patrons abuse the shit out of it. Pun not intended. TL. Dr. Old Man sat at the table 4 hours stewing in his own sheet, creating a deathly smell. Only to be sent to hospital later on. Not a dealer, but I used to be security in a small casino. This Asian lady shows up. Parks right in front of the casino and comes in looking for her husband. It's 5 AM on Christmas morning. I look in the back of the car and 2 kids probably between 4 and 6 are sitting in the car in their PJs. Lady asks us to look around for him but gives us very little description. Asian man with black hair. Lol. We can't find him. So she comes in and searches for 10 minutes before I see her leading this guy out in a disheveled suit. She looks pissed. That was the saddest thing I've ever witnessed. Heard worse though. Not a dealer. Watched a guy streaming his online blackjack game. He splits a double ace. 10k on the hand. Flips a 5 on the left. 7 on the right. Not a big deal. 16/18 not bad. Good chance of beating the house. Flips on 4 left. 19. Decides to stay. House deals double kings. 10k gone in a matter of seconds. That may be unfortunate. I don't know the odds. But it's not sad without context. If he can't afford to play those stakes, he's stupid. If he's an addict and needed that money for something else, then it might be sad. Was a roulette croupier way back in the mid 1990s. Best times were when the table was full of chips except for one little corner and the people on the table were jerks. I would aim to hit the number not covered. After a while it was possible to spin section of the wheel, so when you try it does actually happen at least 1 time out of 10, which was good fun. Anyway. Answering OP. The saddest thing I saw was probably also the most clever. One guy had a little container which locked with a padlock and his key was at home. If he won money he would put it in the container so that he would not be tempted to gamble it away. It was clever. But also very sad that he had so little control that something that extreme was needed. Made me wonder how bad things for this guy really were. Happiest story was the jerk who would throw $1,000 cash on the table, get chips and proceed to plonk the entirety of the chips all over the board. He did this about 40 times over his time there without leaving the table. Which means he was holding at least $40,000 in cash. That was one guy I was glad lost money. Momentum sometimes makes you lose control. Guy is smart AF. Not a casino dealer. But saddest thing I've seen is the new kid at work try and keep up with the VPs and top salespeople at the blackjack table. Up to $250 a hand. Of course the top sales guy who earns $500,000 plus a year comes away $8,000 up. While the new kid on $60,000 salary comes away $5,000 down. Told me he didn't know how he was going to pay his rent and feed his newborn kid for a while. TLDR, don't play with money you can't afford to lose. I didn't work at a table, but I worked at the cage where you exchange your chips or tickets for actual cash. Some of the saddest I witnessed were people who just didn't leave and stayed for upwards of 72 hours at a time just playing and playing. Often casing their losses. One in particular that has stuck with me was this older woman who came up with a ticket from a slot machine. The ticket was for $20. So I exchanged it for her. The defeated smile when she said I might not be able to afford my rent. but at least I can use this to buy some groceries for the month. Really hit me hard. She had spent hours at the casino just feeding the slot machines with everything she had. A lot of media like to glamorize casinos and how awesome it is to work at one, but from my experience it was one of the most depressing places I've ever been. Sure, people would win money. There were big winners every now and then. But the amount of money those people had to spend to win big, most of the time they were lucky to break even. We had a number of deaths that happened there as well. Some were more horrific than others. Edit, had a few people ask about the death that happened. The casino I was at had a more senior client base. It wasn't a young hip casino that brought in a lot of the younger crowd, while there were some. So on a number of occasions a year we would have a customer die due to health reasons. My brother, who also worked there, had a customer have a stroke while he was serving him and collapsed dead right there. There were also a number of suicides, mostly found in bathrooms with something wrapped around their necks or pills. I've mentioned this before on a similar thread about the worst one I was there for. An older couple, I believe they were in their 60s or 70s, was leaving. The woman excused herself to go to the washroom while her husband went to get the car. Well, that wasn't exactly what he had planned. He took out a can of gas from his trunk, doused himself in gas and lit himself on fire while sitting in the car. The security guards who tried to help suffered quite a bit of PTSD from that one. Former dealer. Saw sad, infuriating shit literally every single day. Hell, I'd argue 80% of the gamblers were sad. The one that stuck out to me the most is some dude that arrived at my table at about 3 PM. He sat down saying generally to me, other people at the table, I only have about 2 hours to play. I get to see my son tonight. Basically divorce. It was his turn to spend time with his son, and tonight was his son's first sports game. I don't at all remember which one. He had to leave at 6. I mention when it's 5:30 that he only has 30 minutes left. I tell him when it's 6. He says he can be a few minutes late. He wants to finish the shoe, the rest of the cards. I tell him when it's 7 because I'm actually ducking mad. As someone that barely saw my father growing up. At 8 I go home. I come into work the next day at 10 AM and see him. He never went home. It was sad, but also duck that piece of shit. Wasting his life playing a stupid game and missing doing literally anything else with his time. Not to mention he doesn't deserve his son. There's a reason he's divorced and gets to see his son once a month. My cousin's father was a drug addict and it was the same thing. Every 2 weeks his mom would drive him 50 miles and sit in a parking lot for 3+ hours while the dad never showed up. Kid was 6. Broke his heart every time, but the mom knew that the one time he showed and she wasn't there, he'd go to court. She was diligent and documented it every single time that he didn't come, and about 8 months into it she won full custody. About 5 years later my uncle by blood adopted him legally. Cousin is 20 now and hasn't seen his birth father since he was 6, and he couldn't be happier. I can only hope the kid from your story gets to experience the same. The dad at the card table doesn't deserve him. A friend of mine was nearing foreclosure on her home. She took all her cash, $800, to a casino to win enough to save her house. She lost it all. Man, if all she had to her name was $800 with a mortgage and other debt, she was likely on the brink of bankruptcy anyway. If you're down by 4 points in the last play of the game, it's better to throw the Hail Mary and have the other team get a pick six than just give up and knee it. It's sad seeing how shameless people get at the casino. They'll straight up ask for money and itch when you don't give it to them. They'll just to get $5 only to lose it right away. Seeing people so addicted they miss work and stay for days hoping to win the money back they lost. The casino is just a sad place with bright lights and sounds to make it look like fun and good times. A casino is fun and good times. People are the problem. Serving drinks at the casino. Had a woman playing slots ask me the time. I said it was 4:30. She replied, "Oh good. I still have time to get the cake for my son's birthday party." I just stopped in to play for a little while. It was 4:30 AM. She'd been in the casino for over 12 hours at the slots and had totally missed her son's birthday. Duck me running. Why am I still in this thread? I used to deal roulette. Night shifts. There was this one guy who came in. Not a regular gambler. He had some early wins. And got up a couple $100. Really enjoying himself. Well, he didn't quit while he was ahead. And ended up losing it all and going into the negatives. Down about $100. He said his wife would kill him if he lost money here. So he went to the cash machine and got out more money to bet so he could win it back. No such luck. He stayed at the casino all night. Losing more and more money. At about 5 in the morning. He tries the cash machine and his card is maxed. He empties the change out of his pocket and bets away his last few dollars. Then goes home penniless and on the verge of tears. Oh. And did I say it was this one guy? Yeah, I meant at least one guy every single night. I worked at a bar with a video poker machine. I watched a guy hit 1900 on the video poker machine. He came up. Said he lost his job. This was a gift from God etc. He bought a round for the bar. And tipped me well. He went back to the machine. When I cashed out his ticket 45 minutes later, it was $437. I'm not a dealer, but I work in a gas station with lotto machines. We have this one dude, probably in his mid to late 70s with severe Parkinson's, who comes in almost daily and gambles for up to 7 or 8 hours. He almost never gets anything back either. If he does, it's usually like $5 or $10. His wife calls after several hours and he says he'll be home in 15 minutes, which actually means 1-2 hours. When he's done run out of cash, he'll come to the counter and tell me his wife is going to be so mad at him for blowing that money. I shared this story before on here. And someone mentioned that compulsive behavior such as gambling can be a result of Parkinson's. And that made me feel 10 times sadder for this poor guy. I have other gambling addicts who come in. And mostly I just feel disdain. Mostly 30-40-year-old parents who take their poor kids with them. Or a few older guys who like to make untoward comments regarding me being a woman. But this one I just feel genuinely bad for. My mom used to deal blackjack at a Boulder Strip casino in Vegas. The saddest stories I ever heard were about people cussing, spitting or throwing cards at her over losing. The craziest story was when a guy came crashing through the front doors naked and covered in blood. He had picked up a streetwalker and brought her to his hotel room. But her pimp followed. She let him in and they rolled the guy. Street hookers. Not ever once kids. Am I right in thinking that the dealer in blackjack isn't really playing as much as just following rules laid down by the casino? As in, if you get a face card under X, do Y. If this, then that. In that case it all boils down to chance. No different than a slot machine. Right? Reading this thread reminds me why I am glad I don't gamble. Exactly. I literally just texted this to my wife. Let's never gamble. Duck this sheet. This thread has successfully convinced me to never gamble. If you have poor impulse control and you know it, it's not for you. On the flip side, I go once every few months when I have a lot of time to burn. Blackjack. $15 or $20 a hand. Playing strictly by the book. The $400 I bring is usually enough to last me an entire day. Sometimes I lose it. Sometimes I leave with double my money. I've had other times where I hit win streaks of 25-30 hands and have turned $400 into $2,000 by playing for a few hours betting the table minimum. Just don't look at it as a way to make money. The money you're bringing there is intended to be lost. So just try and make it last as long as possible and don't try to make your money back. Ever. I was dealing craps in Atlantic City and watched Allen Iverson of the 76ers drop his trousers and pee in a potted plant. Happens pretty frequently. But for me it's when high rollers who are betting several thousands of dollars per hand lose everything gradually and end up betting their last few coins from their wallets.